World War by the bomber crews of the US 8th Air Force, as are saluted here by Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress Sally B. Souvenir sales and memberships of the Sally B Supporters Club have been all important during that time.
It's pretty special too.
Around 2,000 American heavy bombers, both B-17s and B-24s, were lost on operations with the 8th Air Force in the last 3 years of the war. And it's no wonder that the B-17's operator, Ellie Salenbo, describes this aircraft as a living piece of our national heritage, one that must be preserved for the enjoyment and education of today's and future generations. Ever since it first arrived in Britain in 1975, it's acted as a flying salute to the around 79,000 Allied airmen killed in the European theatre of operations, 27,000 of whom belong to the 8th Air Force. Bomb doors open on this orbit. The main 8th Air Force tactic was daylight raids, and always a hazard for the B-17s, even though they were able to return from missions, many of them badly shot up, with large sections badly damaged or missing. These were truly heroic exploits, and certainly they need saluting, especially as the members of the 8th Air Force, and indeed all air arms involved in the Allied side in World War II, gradually diminish. The aircraft being captained here by Dutchman Peter Kuipers, a very experienced exponent of multi-engined historic aircraft, not just the B-17, but also the C-47 Skytrain or DC-3 and the B-25 Mitchell, among others. He describes flying this aeroplane as being akin to flying a large Piper Cub. It's an aeroplane very, very deep in his affections. And joining him on the flight deck today is co-pilot Bill Tollett. This is Sally B's last public display of the 2014 season. It's been a busy one, including a memorable trip to Switzerland for the Air 14 display at Haier last flying, and remembering the brave, often young men who went to war with the US 8th Air Force. This pass will have, I believe, smoke on 2 engines to simulate damage sustained in battle, and it's dedicated, as always, to the members of the Sally B Supporters Club. Display from Sally B, and you were talking about the cost of keeping this aeroplane in style. Celebrate Sally B's 40th birthday in style next year. 40th birthday in terms of operation on the British and European airshow circuit, of course. The aircraft will actually be 70 years old in its own right next year. Turning finals now to land. Without doubt the most potent flying memorial to the so-called Mighty Eight. The 8th Air Force To give you an idea of the losses sustained by not just the 8th but also the 9th Air Force in Britain, go to the American Air Museum outside the main entrance, a sculpture, as I believe it's described, an installation you might also say, called Counting the Cost, with silhouettes of all of the aircraft that were lost during those operations on it, and it gives you a sense of the scale of their sacrifice. There's Peter Kuipers and Bill Tollett bringing Sally B in to land. I wonder if he'll keep the tail up for quite as long as Andrew Dixon did yesterday. It looks like he is going to. Beautifully handled by a real expert. That really is splendid. A beautiful performance by Sally B from the left, the two Curtis Hawks. Based at Pearl Harbor at the time of the so-called Day of Infamy, the 7th of December 1941, when the Japanese attacked. And they saw the P-36's sole combat in US service, downing a pair of Mitsubishi Zeros. By then, though, the Hawk had already earned its spurs during the Battle of France, and it's that this aircraft